Hello, my name's Steven from K-Scale Models, and today I'm doing a video on the 1/10 scale Buster Rifle. Yes, you heard right, this is 1/10 scale. So this thing is very big, and I'll be demonstrating more about the size in a minute, but its overall length, when complete, will be 1369.476 millimeters long. Yeah, that's big. So that's almost a meter and a half long. I'm hoping to try to get this thing down to Telford for the Scale Model World in November, but we'll see how that goes because it is that big and I'm not the one driving, so I have to talk to the actual driver and say, hey, will this fit in your car? Is there a safe space for it? The answer might not be yes. So I'll demonstrate later why I might be able to fit this in someone's car, because that's still a very big, it's like almost the width of a car. So anyway, I'm going to go over a couple of features of this before I actually go show you my finished print. So first off, this thing is designed for FDM printing. Normally when I'm designing models, I make them for resin printing. Now, there is parts of my one that have been resin printed, and that was because of time. I was actually running out of time. One of my printers broke and I was just needing to get a few bits done, and some bits just were not happening. It also didn't help that this was December's Patreon build, so it was in the middle of winter and quite cold, so there was quite a bit of warpage. So I'll show you some, well, actually, when you see my model, pay close attention to the handle here. Right here is where it warped quite badly, and I never replaced this part, so you will be able to see that. But at the same time, it's hidden well enough and it's sturdy enough that it didn't really matter for the overall model. Anyway, back to this. So, being this is designed for FDM printing, the main component you have to watch out for is making sure things have a flat surface, and to reduce the amount of supports, everything has to be kind of overhanging or at a 45-degree overhang at the most. So what I decided to do for this particular model, and I'll demonstrate it here, is I made the connection points these big massive panel lines, so they're kind of hidden in there. So if you're printing this vertically, say let's take this bit out and put in that bit that I just hid, this one. Yeah, if you're printing it this as the bottom and this warps, well, you can hide it. And likewise, if you're printing it laying flat down like this, which is probably the better way of doing it, if this bit peels off the bed a little, there's like you don't quite get the settings for your supports right and it peels off, it's hidden, so you don't have to worry about it. So that was my thought behind it. Also, it means that if there is any inaccuracies when you're trying to fit the thing together, then you can sort of hide it with the panel line. So that's my thought on that one. So I have done a video on panel lines where I have used this as an example. Now, the reason why this has to get split up is because this is designed for an Ender 3 at the smallest. So everything here will fit on an Ender 3. It will actually also fit on a Saturn 2. Saturn 1, this part here is just a bit too big. I think it's just a bit too wide to really fit on, a bit awkward. But yeah, the rest of this will fit on that, although I did print most of mine on my CR10 and some bits on my Ender 3, but the Ender 3 was on the way out, so it kind of where most of the failures happened. There is some bits that were like one of these capacitors and this bit back here that was printed on my Ender, no, not my Ender, on my Saturn, Saturn 1, just because I was running out of time and I needed this thing printed, and being the middle of winter, I was having warpage problems, so I'll show you pictures of that later. So yeah, that was the idea behind why these panels are where they are and why this has been split up. So there is some bits where there isn't that level of panel line. This is one down here. So one of the requests I got from Patreons was, can you make it part separated so that it's like color separation? I thought, okay, that's easy enough to do. So I made this its own part. Problem is, this is long enough that it doesn't all fit on the printer. I don't think this even fits on a CR10. Let's just have a quick look at that. So, tip here to here, not going to be exact, but that's 400 millimeters. CR10 standard print bed is 300 millimeters. So yeah, you might be able to get this on one of the bigger CR10 variants, but yeah, not going to happen on most printers. So that had to get split up into 2 bits. Again, what you don't see in this picture is this actually recesses into these parts quite deeply. Again, that's just help out with making sure parts, if there's any warpage, you don't see it because you're printing this thing laying that bit flat. You would not really want to be, I'll just take this off, you don't really want to be printing it this side flat. It just looks better that way. So yeah. Now, going further back, one of the things with the bus rifle, because the reason it's 10 scale is to make it sort of human scale. Now, normally human scale would actually be about 1/12 scale for Gundam, but Gundam wing models are a little smaller, so to get it looking right, I made it 1/10 scale. So anyway, because it's this big, it would be difficult to transport, and it would be like there'd be parts of it that are like needing to be split up for painting and stuff, and it'd just be awkward. So what I decided to do is to break it into here. So let's take off a few bits. So where is this? Ah yes, so these were all put in as different components, so let's just go take those off. So yeah, so those capacitors off, you can now see that in here there is a hole. So this hole would have a dowel in it. Let me just double check the size. So that's 6.2, so it's a 4 or 6mm dowel, although you don't need that, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. And if we take off all these parts, you'll see that there is a hole in here. Now this hole, I'm just going to double check the size again. That is for M8 nut and bolt, basically. So I think I used a socket screw for this. So yeah, this will allow this to break in two, so it will physically snap down. And on my one, I haven't even glued this part in, so this means I can separate in two, so when I'm doing stuff like hopefully taking this thing to Telford, I don't need to worry about the size because it's not quite half length. But let's just take this out and then demonstrate the length. So if I take everything off, length of this to there to there is about 1 meter long. It's a little longer on mine, and I'll explain more when I show the breakdown of it, but you get the idea that yeah, this thing can be broken down into 2 sections, make it easier for transport. And also it means that when you're painting this thing, you can break this part open and slot in the capacitor. So if you paint them separately, because they are going to be silver, you could then slot them in afterwards and there shouldn't be any issue. There is something though I wish I'd done with these. Rather than just breaking this in two, I wish I put magnets on both sides, because that's how this is connected. If I take this component off, you will see a hole here. This is for a magnet, so get that off. So what's the diameter of this again? So yeah, 20mm diameter magnet, or 20mm by, let me just go and get the size of this. So by 4mm. So yeah, that is like a very powerful magnet. And when I assembled mine, I found that these magnets were sufficient to hold this together even without this bit being glued in. So you can safely hold this and it won't fall apart on you. So last thing I'll just bring up is, because of the size of this, I thought it'd be an idea to have a stand. So there is 2 stands there and there. So this one connects into the actual handle, and this one connects to the front of it. So you can slide this along to like support it where you believe it's best supported. But yeah, that is the actual model itself. Now let's go have a look at the pictures. So as you can see here, this thing is massive. Normally I have a photo booth with all the lights and stuff to give you to like show off these things. But in this case, I've had to just rig up some bed sheets because this thing is massive, and I mean plural bed sheets because this thing's big enough that I couldn't just use one bed sheet for this. So yeah, that's the side-on view. That's the front view. Now, notice for here, I didn't paint that green. Now, on the actual model, it's supposed to be green, but I didn't have any green spray paint because this thing is that big that your little bottles of Tamiya paint are not going to cover it. This used up several cans of spray paint, so yeah, be aware of that when you're actually making this. Is you will need to like get a couple of tins of paint. This is it from the rear. This is from the other side. Now, I'd just like to point out, this capacitor here is actually printed on my resin printer, and you can tell that because there's actually a fault line there. Again, with it being winter and just like generally having problems with that printer at the time, yeah, I got a line there when printing, just a little movement. So yeah, not perfect. This here is the FDM replacement because I had 3 of these printed on the resin printer. Then I dropped 2 of them when I was painting it, so I had to hurriedly make these ones. I wasn't going to use the resin printer because I was busy doing something else with it. And just a quick thing, you can see in here that yeah, the handle has actually warped. It's actually quite bad, but you can't really see it once this is like all set up. So I've just kind of left it there, and it is glued in place. I was having problems painting that, just masking it off. It is a bit of a nightmare, so I wish I'd done that in separate pieces, but hey, that's how it is now. So, just getting like zoomed in on the capacitors. This bit here is, I'll just show you on this bit in here. Now you'll notice something. There's a little bit in there, and I don't have it. So what's going on? So this is where the dowel will go through. Now, when I was making this, as I said, I found that I didn't need the dowel to keep this thing in place. The 20mm magnets there and around here are sufficient to hold it. And in actual fact, I'm only holding this up by 2 magnets because, let's go back here. Yeah, this is just showing you the bottom of that hinge bit. You see it's not actually fully locked in. It's just the clearance between these bits. I needed to do a bit more sanding and clearing out when I was doing this because yeah, FDM a little bit of inaccuracy, and then I put paint on top of it, so things didn't quite go in the way they're supposed to. And you'll notice something up here. So up here you'll notice a gap. This part broke. When I was putting it together, like this broke off. So yeah, despite that, the 2 magnets are holding it from this one and the one on top, so these 2, they fit on fine. Now I am terrified to take these 2 off because I'm worried I'm going to break it even more, and if I break it even more, I'm not going to be able to hold the thing together. So yeah, those bits are just basically, they're not glued in place, but they're staying where they are because I'm not touching them. And this is the rear half. So you see that that's the capacitor. That's only held on by a 20mm magnet. So I've taken it off there, and you can see the holes for the magnets. So yeah, the idea, as I said before, the idea was that you can break it in 2 and get the capacitors in and out. So originally I was thinking you could maybe do this for some sort of cosplay thing, but the more I hold this thing and play around with it, the more I realize, yeah, you're not really going to be using this thing for cosplay. It is too heavy to practically hold and carry around a show all day. So yeah. So yeah, that's the magnets, the capacitors all back in place from the other side, and this gives you an idea of the size. That is a Pringles packet. and that is the size of the actual gun. Now, of course, the Pringle packet's a little further forward, so it does look a little bigger, but that is still a massive model. So, yeah, I hope you found this interesting, and if you want to get this model, I will leave links in the description below. The main place I recommend to get it is newtype. Newtype USA do a lot of my models. The other places are Cults 3D, and I believe this one's even up on Etsy. So, thank you for watching today.